Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings be upon those who follow guidance. So, in this video, I'm going to refute Muhammad Hijabi in this video, where he legitimizes that UFC is actually halal in Islam. Now, Sabur Ahmed replies to this because it was Sabur Ahmed who published this. He writes, quote, "Lots of criticism of the content of the video in the comment section below, and I want to clarify some things." He says, and he's trying to defend Muhammad Hijab, he says, "Firstly, the video doesn't argue that MMA being halal is the right opinion. It acknowledges that the majority opinion is that is forbidden." He then goes on to say, "Secondly, some have asked about ring girls, alcohol, MMA. I think that's a big no. If there is room to discuss, and it is MMA as a form of training, not a career, and especially not with those clearly haram content involved. There may be room for allowing it under some conditions and circumstances." So, in one way, Sabur is saying, defending Muhammad Hijab, he's saying basically that the right opinion is the opinion of the majority. This is Sabur's take on this. And then he goes on, however, in his second paragraph, he writes that there may be room for allowing it in some conditions and some circumstances. So he basically says you can train for MMA, but you can't, you shouldn't make a career, like jump in the ring and do it professionally. I guess that's what he's saying. But then he kind of contradicts himself by saying there may be room for allowing it under some circumstances and conditions. And it's a very vague comment. He's not really explaining himself. It's like he's trying to cover up for Muhammad Hijab. And then he goes on to say how he's trying to say, well, we should follow the majority of the opinion and we shouldn't make a career out of it. But then he kind of backtracks and says it could be allowed in some conditions and some circumstances. So for me, I think he does agree with what Muhammad Hijab says, because Muhammad Hijab says that this hadith that we use, that you shouldn't hit a Muslim in the face, a believer in the face, Muhammad Hijab says this hadith has been, does not apply according to the scholars. There's three different opinions, that this hadith doesn't apply to non-Muslims. It only applies to believers. It only applies to Muslims. And he says that there are Hanafi scholars who make this admission. Now, this seems to me, this is why I kind of dislike Yasir Qadi's dawah method. And the reason why I bring Yasir Qadi is because they like to pollute the waters, right? And Muhammad Hijab, unfortunately, is probably being manipulated by the followers of Yasir Qadi, and they follow that same method. They're like, well, we can't say what is haram or halal because there are so many different opinions, right? There are so many different opinions. We can't say it's right or we can't say it's wrong. And I think this is a danger. This is a danger because if we're going to follow that method of thinking, then we could say that everything in Islam automatically now starts to become non-applicable. Because when you say that there are all these varying opinions, then one could say that usury is not haram. We can't officially say it's haram, because I can guarantee you'll find a sheikh out there that says, oh, usury in a certain circumstances, it's allowed. You can go get a house mortgage. It's fine. You know, instead of being enslaved to renting, then, you know, it's halal to you. And they do. And they do say this. So are we now, if we're going to accept this methodology of, oh, there's all these varying opinions, therefore we can't really say it's haram or halal, then we need to then apply that for all things. We need to apply that for all things. And if you do that, then what has Islam become now? Islam has now become an artificial religion, because we're just confused. We don't know what's haram or halal because there's too many varying opinions, different opinions. And what you are doing is you are making Islam look bad in front of the Islamophobes. You are, because think about it. They went to Christianity. They got all these varying opinions on, is the Bible authentic? Is it not authentic? Is Jesus God? Is Jesus not God? They don't have a single standard. And then when you say that Islam is like this too, okay, everything is objectionable, everything is questionable, we don't know, is it haram, is it halal? There's all these different varying opinions from different scholars. There's all these different ideas. You have this school and you have that school and you have this school. And all of them very different on different things. Yeah, Aki, what are you doing? What are you doing with your Islam, yeah? Why are you taking Islam down the same channel of Christianity? You may say to me, oh brother, but it's true. There are some certain things that there are disagreements. There are differences of opinion. I'm saying, yes, I understand this. I understand that in some things there are differences of opinion. But you guys have made a difference of opinion on everything, yeah? On every bloody single thing you have made a difference of opinion. Now it's become a difference of opinion punching another human being in the face for sport. This has also become a difference of opinion. Are you normal? How dare you make a mockery of Islam, yeah? You're probably saying, why are you angry? I'm angry. I'm sick and tired of this. Every single thing in Islam has now become a difference of opinion. Muhammad Hijab saying, oh, you can hit a non-believer. How bad does that make Islam look? He's saying that this hadith only applies for the Muslim, that you can't hit a Muslim in the face. It doesn't apply for the non-Muslim. How do you think that looks when you're doing dawah to a non-Muslim? You're saying you're the sheikh of the Muslims, you're the intellectual debater for the Muslims, and you're coming out and saying we can punch and beat and break the face of a non-Muslim, but not the Muslim. What is this? SubhanAllah, didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say He sent the Quran as a mercy for humankind? Didn't He send the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Didn't Allah say we have sent the Prophet Muhammad as a mercy to humankind? What part of that did you miss? So the Prophet was sent, his message was sent as a mercy for the believers, but not for the unbelievers. So the Prophet Muhammad treated the believers different and the non-Muslims like animals. In fact, worse than animals. You know why? Because there's a hadith that says you are forbidden to hit an animal in the face. You're forbidden to hit an animal in the face. Are you saying that the non-Muslim is even less than the animal? Is this what you want to preach now to the non-Muslims? This is why the non-Muslims have lost disrespect for you. It's because of people like this coming out and saying they are the speakers for the Muslims. They are the most intellectual debaters, and they come out and speak like this in front of a non-Muslim audience. Because yes, non-Muslims are viewing this. Whether we like it or not, they're viewing this. Imagine this for a minute. This guy gets a knee to the face. Have a look at this. Look at his face. Look at the skull damage. Look at the skull damage. Look at that full facial surgery replacement. And this is halal? This is halal? This is halal, Muhammad Hijab. This is halal according to Islam. Really? Oh, it's okay because he's an unbeliever. He's an unbeliever, Muhammad Hijabi. You can do that because he's an unbeliever. And then Muhammad Hijabi brings up, oh, why are you going after MMA? Why don't we talk about other contact sport like rugby and, other like maybe footy games or other contact sports that can equally do this sort of damage? But subhanAllah, like, look at the inconsistency, incoherency. Seriously, come on, Muhammad Hijab. You got to lift your game up, brother. Brother, honestly, this is just my advice to you. Wallahi, this is my sincere advice. It's not having a go at you. It's my sincere advice. Wallahi, it's my sincere. I want the best for you, Aki. I want you to go to Jannah. I want you to go and be on the right path and do the right things. But seriously, this argument, come on, seriously. You're comparing a sport that literally has in its code of conduct that you must destroy your opponent by blowing him directly. The intention is to hit him in the face, knockout. This is your aim. This is your intention, right? Because your aim is not to go 12 rounds, 6 rounds, 7 rounds. It is to beat your opponent as quickly as possible, right? You're comparing an intentional blow where these fighters are trained to knock the other person out. Their direct intention is to do that. And you want to compare it to soccer or rugby, right? Where it's not the intention to take a man's head off, right? And if something does happen, an injury, yes, it's inconvenient, it's unintentional, but you want to compare it with a sport that is intentional to do the damage it wishes to do to the opponent. Like, come on, seriously. You really couldn't think of that. You really couldn't think of that, Muhammad Hijab. So according to Muhammad Hijab, cricket is now haram. Cricket is haram because that ball could hit you in the head, that hard cricket ball. Because apparently according to Muhammad Hijab, you have the bowlers in cricket just aiming for a person's skull. They're just throwing it directly at a person's skull because they just want to knock him out. Is that the way you want to make all these other sports sound? I mean, if they were like that, then yes, I'd say cricket is haram if you're just aiming for the guy's head, right? I'd say, okay, halas, cricket is haram too, because their intention is to go for their head, not for the wickets. Their intention is to go for their head. Come on, man, like, seriously. What's wrong with these guys? What is wrong? Seriously, man, I want to understand what's going through their mentality. What's wrong with them? Is it because Muhammad Hijab likes the UFC and he participated in a fight? I mean, is that why? Is that what it is? So we're going to be controlled by our emotions. We're going to be controlled by our desires because we're involved in it. Is that what it is? But didn't Islam prohibit that? That you should not follow your desires even if you are in that sport or even if you enjoy doing that? Didn't Islam teach to separate yourself from that, from the desires, from your self-interest? Didn't Islam teach to be just even if it's against yourself? And then Muhammad Hijabi speaks about gymnastics. He's like, do you know the rate of injury in gymnastics? Do you know the rate? So again, the rate of injury in gymnastics. So what, a knee ligament damage, or a twist of an ankle, a twist of an arm. He wants to compare that to a knee to the head that breaks the skull. And he wants to bring up those statistics. So what are the statistics, Muhammad Hijab? Why didn't you show the statistics of these major injuries? And then we'll compare it to UFC. And even if he goes by that logic, and he wants to say that, what about all these sports with all these injuries? Okay, then ban it all. But ban it all. Tamam, no worries. I agree with you. But you have to jump on board too. If you say, okay, all the other ones have to be banned, but jump on that bandwagon. But he won't jump on that bandwagon, will he? He won't jump on it. And then in the video, Muhammad Hijab says, it's not my duty to say it's haram or halal. And they always do this. Yasser Qadhi does the same thing. They show all of these arguments for UFC being legal, and then they sit down and say, well, it's not my duty to say whether it is haram or halal. But you used all of these arguments to prove it. Do you understand the confusion? Do you understand the confusion that you spread to the masses? And Yasser Qadhi does this as well. Yasser Qadhi will say, I'm not saying whether this is haram or halal. And he brings about 50,000 arguments to prove that it is halal. It's like they play the devil's advocate. Oh, I'm not saying it's haram or halal, but look, I can show you 60 arguments in favor of it. What game is this? What game are they playing? And then look what he says. He says there is no blame on anyone on issues of difference of opinion. Listen to what he says. Have a listen. Listen.
Remember, it's not really my job to do that here. My job is just to try diving from the top of the whatever. All of these have risks attached to them. So the question is, where do we stop? So I'm not saying halal or haram. Remember, it's not really my job to do that here. My job is just to transmit what scholars have said. But here's the thing, there is a qaida, there is a principle in religion, in fiqh, which all of the scholars mention, from all the schools of thought, all four of them, which is la inkar fi masail al-khilaf. There is no blame on issues of difference of opinion. This is a...
Did you hear that? There's no blame on anyone on issues of difference of opinion. Wow. Wow, Muhammad Hijab. Wow, watch this be used against you. Do you know that there are Salafi scholars that approve what Al-Qaeda and ISIS do? They approve what Al-Qaeda, the ISIS interpretation of the Quran that says an eye for an eye, the way they kill you, you kill them back. If they kill your women and children, you kill their women and children. This is an Al-Qaeda interpretation of the Quran, which is backed by some scholars. So is Muhammad Hijab now going to say that there is no blame on anyone on the opinion you follow? Come on, Muhammad Hijab. Answer this. You're going to say there's no blame on this opinion? So apparently, according to you, there's no such thing as Khawarij going to Jahannam, that they are the dogs of hellfire. Right? You can't say they are the dogs of hellfire because there are difference of opinion. There are different, whether you like it or not, they have their scholars, they have difference of opinion. So watch his contradiction here. Remember earlier Muhammad Hijabi said, I'm not saying it's halal or haram. Remember he said this. He said he's not saying that it is haram or halal. Look what he says here.
As if they don't believe it's haram. You're telling me you think it's haram. Okay, fine. I get why you think it's haram. I get the argument. But I don't believe it's haram, having looked at it from my own...
Did you hear what he said? He says he doesn't believe it's haram. Earlier he said, let's go back. We'll go back to the tape.
Diving from the top of the whatever, all of these have risks attached to them. So the question is, where do we stop? So I'm not saying halal or haram. Remember, it's not really my job to do that here.
Did you hear that? He said he's not saying it's haram or halal, and it's not his job to do so. He clearly said he's not saying it's haram or halal. And then we'll forward a little bit further, and look what he says.
Deal with them as if they don't believe it's haram.
Listen now.
You're telling me you think it's haram. Okay, fine. I get why you think it's haram. I get the argument. But I don't believe it's haram, having looked at it from my...
See, he says he doesn't believe it's haram. Right? So before he's saying he doesn't say if it's haram or halal. He clearly said he's not saying that whether it's haram or halal, but now he's openly saying that he himself doesn't believe it's haram. Now listen, we're going to go back to the ISIS argument, right? Listen to what he says here. Listen.
Image that indicates it's talking about all humankind, because I don't see a connection between the second part of the hadith and the first. I personally don't see it. I'm not convinced. Now, am I allowed to follow an opinion that just like anyone else can follow whatever opinion they want to follow, even if it is a minority opinion, so long as it has scholarly backing. We're not saying this, it's not a modern fatwa, this is actually...
Okay, so ISIS can follow a minority opinion as long as they've got a scholar to back them. Then what they're doing is you can't judge them, Muhammad Hijabi. You can't call them the dogs of hellfire. You can't say they're Khawarij, right? You can't. You can't do that. And yet you do that. So where is the consistency there? Muhammad Hijabi in the next argument goes into car insurance, believe it or not. He's so desperate that he says, all these people that are saying UFC is haram, they put an exception in the rule for insurance and they go get car insurances. That you can't then use that as a justification. You can't say because all these Muslims are doing haram, then they make an exception for that. Now we can make an exception for UFC. See, Muhammad Hijabi, you can't make an argument. You can't. Yes, all you're doing is showing the double standards of some of these Muslims who go get car insurance, but that doesn't make your argument valid. It doesn't make your argument valid. I could turn around and say, don't do UFC, go do some other sport that aims less for the face, aims less for the head. Like something like, freestyle wrestling, for instance. Right? I mean, I could say that. And then Hijabi says, what's become so widespread is the weakness of men. Weakness of men. So he's basically trying to say, do the lesser of the two evils. That's going to be his last argument, right? Or maybe he's got more. I'm only halfway through the video. That it is better for Muslim men to participate in this because it is the lesser of the two evils. Look at this, another argument. Ya Habibi, they could do a lot of other things besides breaking someone's skull, Muhammad Hijabi. They could do a lot of other things besides breaking someone's skull or potentially getting injured very severely in the face, right? They could do a lot of other sports that will still express your manlyhood, Muhammad Hijabi. A lot of other sports besides UFC. So, again, really weak. And then Muhammad Hijabi uses the fear campaign. That you're living in a non-Muslim country, the non-Muslim you're fighting against, 99% knows kickboxing, UFC, knows all these combat sports, and because of this fatwa, you know nothing. And therefore, if you're with your family outside and someone attacks you, there's going to be 100% chance you're going to lose that fight. Like, seriously, Muhammad Hijab. Muhammad Hijab, I've been living in Australia for 40 years. I've never ever got into such an altercation. Never got into such an altercation like that. Like, seriously. You want to make it like, you sound like the Islamophobes. You know the Islamophobes? We're all in danger. We got to kick the Muslims out. We got to kick the immigrants out. They're coming over, they're taking over. They're attacking us left, right, and center. They're killing us. We need to stop the boats. We've got to stop the planes. We've got to stop the immigrants coming here. You're like a guy that's screaming wolf. Same methodology. Oh, brothers, you all have to do UFC now because we're all getting into punch-ons and fights in the street. We're all getting attacked left, right, and center. Come on, seriously. Same mentality. And I think because Muhammad Hijab has spoken to Islamophobes so much that Islamophobia narrative has now brushed off on him. It's brushed off. Brothers and sisters, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't learn combat sport. There's a difference. You should. I'm saying you should train, learn. If you want to learn UFC, train, learn. Go in a sparring circumstance with pads, head shields, head covering, boxing gloves, tackle, whatever. Do your best, no problem. But Muhammad Hijab, don't conflate that now to go into a ring to actually try and kill one another. Come on, Aki. Have a better sense of ability.
I'm not saying all white men are racist, but let's just say you got a white racist for the sake of argument. EDL. He's been doing boxing, he's been doing kickboxing, he's doing all those kind of things. He confronts you and your wife and your kids in the street. You're in a ghurba, you are in a foreign land, yeah? And then now you're fighting in front of your wife and your kids. He has training, boxing training, kickboxing training, grappling training. You, because of the fatwa, have decided not to do that. No problem. Now let's fight, let's see who wins. 99% he's going to win. It's 99 because he's trained, you're not trained. It's simple as that. So now you have not been able to fulfill your functions qawwam as a protector because you've been hiding behind an opinion which now we need to start to think about. I'm not saying do whatever, just as we thought about with car insurance. What's more of a darura? I'm asking the question. What's more of a darura? Driving a car or protecting your wife? That's a question, brother. I'm asking the muftis. What's
our wives are getting attacked left, right, and center. We need to protect. We all need to learn UFC now because they're attacking. Hijabi, let me tell you one thing, brother Hijabi. Let me tell you one thing. 99% of the cases of your wife and your children being attacked in the street is because there's no mahram at all. Okay? So when you hear stories of Muslim women being attacked in the street, they're attacking Islamophobes attack Muslim women when they're alone, not when their husbands are there. Okay? So your argument just got destroyed. Your argument got destroyed, completely got destroyed. Okay? 9 out of 10 cases of a Muslim family being attacked in the street, it's an Islamophobe going after a Muslim woman while she's by herself with the children. Right? It's not, so men is completely irrelevant here. And here is another point that's going to completely debunk Muhammad Hijabi. If it is halal, as he claims he says it is, he says it's halal because, there's difference of opinion and you should be a strong Muslim and, especially in this day and age of, the Western Islamophobia where tensions are up and stuff like that. If it's really comfortable, if it's halal, then you should be able to fight a Muslim as well. Right? You should be able to fight a Muslim in the ring as well and punch him in the face. If it's halal, it should be applied for a Muslim as well. If you think it's perfectly normal, then why are you denying the Muslim? If 2 Muslim fighters are fighting in the UFC and they're fighting for the championship, and it's going to bring great benefits, it's going to bring them wealth, it's going to bring them money, it's going to bring them promotion, then why isn't this halal? Why make an exception? If it's halal, it's halal. It should be, regardless if you're going to hit a Muslim, if you're going to hit a non-Muslim, it should be halal, right? It should be halal because you say that hadith only applies for the non-Muslim. Then why, if it's not bad, if it's something not really bad or controversial and there's difference of opinion, then the same opinion should apply for hitting a Muslim in the face. Then you can hit a Muslim in the face as well then. And now watch this inconsistency. Listen to what he says.
You cannot force your opinion upon me. Did you get what I'm trying to say? The maximum you can say is, I take the view that it's haram, which is the majority view. I say, I respect that view. I know where it's coming from, and I think you've got a strong view. But you and I couldn't do mubahala on this. Meaning mubahala means...
Notice the inconsistency. Earlier he said that we are haram police. Is this his form of respecting our opinion? So if we say it's haram and we force this opinion, as in we stick by this opinion. I'm not holding a gun to Muhammad Hijab's head. I'm saying I believe he's wrong, and I believe it is haram. Muhammad Hijab says he respects our opinion, but then he tries to mock us by calling us haram police. How is that respecting our opinion? How is that That's mocking our opinion. He's mocking our opinion by calling us, you are haram police. Right? So again, another inconsistency upon another inconsistency.
Which means that we don't know exactly, because there's difference of opinion on the matter. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's like one of those fiqh masail. So if it's dhanni, and now there's a big maslaha for it, we have to reconsider it in light of that, especially as aqalliyat, as minorities in the West. If we don't, then it's going to be a big problem.
He has to reconsider it, because you know why? Look where he's making the video. He's making the video when he's inside a UFC gym. Right? So the gym, he's part of it. He's the associates of that gym. And he's coming out. It's like a person selling khamr. And you're telling him at his khamr shop that, akhi, don't sell this khamr. This is forbidden. And the guy is debating with you inside his alcohol shop. He's saying, no, there's maslaha, there's a difference of opinion, and you know, we can have alcohol, but it can't have strong intoxicants where it leads you to intoxication. And mind you, there are opinions like that. There are opinions now that you can drink khamr as long as you don't get intoxicated. It doesn't get to the level of intoxication. That you can sit down and have one beer, maybe 2 beers, but as long as it doesn't go into the intoxication level, then it's okay. You can have alcohol. Yeah. So it's like me arguing with a person like that. I'll go to his bottle shop and he's saying it's halal, and he's trying to he's in the business. He's in the alcohol business. He's trying to he's promote his alcohol, and this same guy is trying to say it's halal. Why? Why is it halal? Because he's selling it. He's in there. He's part of it. Are you going to get truth from an individual who has his interest in this? You're not going to be able to get the truth from that person. You're not going to be able to get the truth. Right? If a person is selling khamr and it's made it his livelihood, and then you're going to go up to this person and trying to convince him it's haram. Imagine. You may say, but Muhammad Hijab isn't making a profession out of it, but he's still indulged in it. He doesn't have to make a profession, he's still indulged in it. Right? I don't have to sell alcohol, but I could drink it and I can be indulged in it. Right? Same thing.
Let me tell you something, Ahi. People change their minds when they get rude awakenings. You're walking with your wife in the street, white man gives you one punch on the floor in front of your wife, you're humiliated because you had no prior experience. You could have prevented that with 20 courses of how to defend this or do that or whatever, kick or check or whatever. You could have prevented it, but you didn't. You didn't.
But you see, that's not Muhammad Hijab's argument. If he made that argument that you need to go get courses, no problem. It's okay. But he's not saying courses, right? He's not just saying courses, so don't be deceived. He is talking about going into the ring and physically sparring with very less protection, right? So don't let him put this spin on it. He's putting a spin on it to say, you denied yourself getting courses. I mean, if that's the argument, then yes, I agree with him. But we know that is a cunning deception from Muhammad Hijab. This is why these guys can't keep their storyline straight. They can't be honest in the way they actually preach.
Don't tell me that's not something that we need to look at. And let's be honest. In the UK, there's 75,000 military personnel, active military as reservists. We as Muslims are not going to go into the military, are we? We're not going to go into the military because the military does foreign invasions which we disagree with. So you have 75,000 men and women in this country who are, for the most part, non-Muslim, for the most part, 99%, who have a greater deal of training than me and you, than the Muslim community, a 4 million people Muslim community, 2 million of which are men.
Brothers, check it out. This is Sahih Bukhari 67, Hunting and Slaughtering, Volume 7, Book 67. Number 449, narrated of Ibn Umar, dislike the branding of animals on the face. Ibn Umar. Ibn Umar. This is the guy that is fits Muhammad Hijab's definition. Who is more stronger than Umar? Umar says, do not hit an animal on the face. Do not hit an animal on the face. An animal on the face. You can't hit an animal on the face. But according to their logic, you can hit a kafir in the face. As long as he's non-Muslim, you can hit him in the face. MashaAllah to the dawah. MashaAllah, Allahu Akbar. They must be so impressed listening to this. I want to finish off by last saying there are people who object to MMA as not being the human version of cockfighting, make the argument about consent, claiming that animals don't consent to fight and that they are forced to fight, whereas UFC fighters consent to the fighting, therefore not brutal or inhumane like the way animals are treated in cockfighting, since these UFC fighters understand the consequences and can decide for themselves, unlike animals who don't have the consent to tap out or can't consent when engaging in fight they are forced into. This goes back to the hadith, relating to that hadith, do not hit an animal in the face. My response to that is, if we are using consent as the rule to decide moral issues in sport, then let's, for that matter, introduce sharpened swords into the UFC, like the way gladiators used to fight back in Rome. Yeah, let's see real blood being spilled and beheadings, but apparently this is all morally and ethically acceptable because only those who enter this competition have had to first consent. Therefore, if they have consented, then they are informed about the risks they are taking and bear the full responsibility. So how will it be like that? Are we now going to use consent as the moral standard? I hope not. So just because humans consent to things doesn't make it morally justifiable. So this argument is flawed. If it were then under the rules of consent, we could introduce so many other barbaric sports for human entertainment, but no ethical person would do that. So yes, UFC is a human form of cockfighting, regardless of whether it is based on consent or no consent. It is still barbaric and inhumane to beat someone like that. If someone gave consent to throw himself off a bridge, would we allow that? No, we wouldn't. So why is this now allowed in sport? That it is designed to hurt people brutally. Its intended purpose is to hurt the other person by knocking out with aggressive blows to the head. This is sickening, and those who call for it are no different from the inhumane cockfighters who are there to see entertainment of animals hurting other humans, which is not much different than the UFC. And the saddest part is these are humans and not animals, and we treat them less of an